it's candles. Oh, and saffron and salt. These are the smoothies. Sweet chai spice. This is the fudge. And tea. We're just here for a session about rituals for a good morning.
I've got blueberry and cardamom lassi to start with, or chai. And you can do one or the other to start with, and then they'll start with the chai. What do you feel like? Something warming or chai? Okay, fine. Sorry? Oh, so hi. Nice to meet you. Nice to say hi. Yeah, of course. Do you want to just give it out?
Look at these crumbles, fudge. What do you think of the chai?
Thank you. Thanks for your
Do you like it? This is my chai. It's very, very spicy. Lots of cardamom, I think. What is the spice? Like, gives you a big kick.
The basic principles of Ayurveda and how you can enhance your morning rituals, your morning, and inspire your day by just starting off in a much more happier way. The basics of Ayurveda, because there are a lot of people who kind of understand or put, when they think of Ayurveda, they think the three doshas. And yes, the three doshas are very, very important because we are all made up of different constitutions, and that's what Ayurveda, and in fact all ancient systems of medicine are sort of all about, which is that there's no one size fits all because we're all made of different elements, and our constitutions are so different, and that's why something that suits me won't suit you, or that's why, you know, after a meal we'll all feel so different, even if we're having exactly the same thing and we've had exactly the same thing earlier in the day. So everything that we do has to be according to our constitution, and that's why the doshas are really important. Now, it's very hard to actually understand or get to know what your dosha is, because it takes someone, a specialist, an Ayurvedic consultant, to actually take your pulse. That's one of the main ways of reading your dosha, and by listening in and understanding your pulse, they will be able to tell you what dosha is the most prevalent in your constitution, and therefore what you should eat according to that, what your lifestyle would be. And there's also characteristics that we all have according to our doshas. So the general thing is that we are prevalent or predominant in one dosha, and then an imbalance. The problem with it is that we will always stay the same, so we can't change our dosha necessarily, but what we can do is make them more balanced. So we could be out of balance in one or two of the doshas that we're predominant in. So the Vata, Pitta, Kapha, the three constitutions, are three doshas, and I might be predominant in Pitta and Vata, but I'm also an imbalance of the two. So then how do I balance those two? So it's about how to keep those in balance. But what I speak about more in my book, rather than the doshas, is how to lead a more sattvic life. Now, there are three gunas as well, and the three gunas are sattva, rajas, and tamas. And those three are basically how to live a more pure lifestyle and a more sort of truthful and happier lifestyle, which is sattva. Rajas is a more energetic and fiery, and the foods that get you sort of revved up a little bit. And we also need that in our lives, especially when we live in the city. And then there's this tamas, which is lethargic and heavier foods that make you feel slower and just not so great in the day. And those foods are not just foods, but you know, we can lead a more tamasic life, which is because of the foods we eat, but also because of the lack of exercise maybe, or the fact that we don't move our body. It's lots of different things that can contribute to that tamasic lifestyle. So we want to get ourselves more to the sattvic lifestyle. And the three gunas are a very yogic philosophy. So that's what I write about a bit more, that we want to first try and aspire to have a more sattvic lifestyle, and then focus on the doshas. Because even if we do have this very sattvic lifestyle, and we can go about our day in a much more enriching way that will make us feel happier, better, and with a spring in our step, we may not be doing things according to our constitution, which is why, for example, having certain pulses, even though pulses are better than having a packet of crisps, might not suit all of us because our constitution is different. So that's one of the basic, that's like the understanding sort of one of the basic pillars of Ayurveda. But then there's also what I focus on a lot, and which is why I went into Ayurveda, because I actually was very affected by my own digestion. And I think nowadays people are speaking about it a lot more, you know, talking about how to, how bloated we feel, how constipated sometimes people feel, what things make us more constipated and what actually helps us, why yoga actually helps digestion, why is everyone having probiotics these days? There's so many things that people are speaking about that I'm so glad people are speaking about, because there was a time when we were all affected by these things, but we weren't talking about it. But there's also a reason for that, because there are so many things nowadays that we're bombarded with, that we're confusing our systems with, which is affecting our digestion and causing indigestion, bloating, and all these things. So what Ayurveda says is that digestion and the digestive fire in our bodies, in our stomachs, which is called the Agni, that has to be ignited and remain ignited throughout the day. And if that gets doused in some sort of way, then the fire won't be able to digest the food that it receives. So for example, if you are eating a meal in the morning, and then you don't leave enough of a gap before lunchtime, then that won't allow the fire to ignite again properly. So the amount of time you leave between meals is just as important as what you eat, and how much you eat, of course. But the other thing that Ayurveda says is that having cooked foods is really, really important. So trying to have more cooked foods rather than raw foods. But again, we have to talk about seasons within that. There might be the warmer seasons where we can have more raw foods, but try not to, depending on your digestion, depending on your capacity to digest, try not to have raw foods in the evening. So that's the other thing. So one of the main pillars of Ayurveda is digestion, and having cooked foods, making sure the digestive fire remains ignited, and that's what we do everything for. So for example, the concoctions that we'll make now, it's to ignite that digestive fire in the morning. So for example, if we haven't had anything to eat, the first thing we do is have lots of water. And then having something like cinnamon in hot water, for example, or ginger, those things ignite the fire within us. And that will increase our digestive capacity to be able to receive breakfast. And what Ayurveda says is that you should have breakfast about 2 hours after you wake up. So that's the optimum time to have it. But of course, then there's the whole circadian rhythm thing. So we should actually be living according to when the sun wakes up, when the sun is at its strongest, and that's the other thing that Ayurveda speaks about. It's a little bit confusing, but what the circadian rhythm is trying to wake up when the sun wakes up. Now, of course, I don't really do that because I'm not a morning person, but if we can aspire to do that more and more, or even just slightly earlier, that actually helps, again, with our digestion, because then we're having breakfast at the right time, we're having lunch at the right time, and we're going according to the sun. So as much as we can, trying to shift our lives towards that will actually enhance our lives when we're awake, basically, our digestion, everything. So having breakfast 2 hours after we wake up also hones into the fact that actually Ayurveda has always spoken about intermittent fasting, which is something that we think right now of as a diet, but it's actually not a diet. It's actually something that we should actually all be doing. Not necessarily the number of hours that intermittent fasting advocates, but the principle, which is not eating after dinner, having an early dinner, not eating after it. So ideally, if you have dinner at 6 or 7 p.m. and not having anything after it, by the time you wake up and it's 2 hours gone after you've woken up, that's around 12 to 14 hours anyway. So actually, intermittent fasting speaks about 16 hours. But if you do the 14 hours on a daily basis, or 12 to 14 hours, that's actually a very good Ayurvedic way of living. And it prevents all that snacking, and it allows your digestive capacity to increase during the night, so that in the morning it's at its optimum. So everything we do basically in Ayurveda, everything that you do, not in Ayurveda, but it enhances your digestive capacity, and that's what we want to make sure remains constant in our lives, because that affects our moods, that affects how we feel during the day, that affects like how much energy we have during the day, and therefore what we eat really does matter. So the concoctions that I've come up with this morning are cumin. So I speak in the book about having waters during the day, so rather than just having normal water, which is totally fine, putting seeds in it. So for example, cumin seeds, fennel seeds. So I boil the water with fennel seeds and cumin seeds, or you just put hot water into it. Let it cool down. Either have it hot and sip it hot, which is totally fine, or let it cool down, fill it up in your bottle, and then you can sip on that during the day. It's very yellow, and you'll see in a minute when you make it. You don't need to, toast them. You can toast the fennel seeds and cumin seeds first, but you don't have to do that. And you can put them in hot water, just literally a teaspoon in a massive bottle, or even half a teaspoon, and that really helps with digestion during the day. Now that's not going to mean that you'll digest your food better, but it will help just make your stomach feel calmer during the day, because cumin, fennel seeds, and if you have stomach problems, and if you really are bloated, then ajwain, which is carom seeds, are really helpful. Now a lot of Indians have, like, after a meal, or if they're feeling like bloated or heavy, then they'll have like a bit of carom seeds, like literally less than a teaspoon, and just swallow them because they're very spicy, or if they can take the spice, then chew them. Otherwise you can just sip on them in hot water. And see how it makes you feel, see what it does for you. It's not a laxative, but it just is, it's just good for, that's so funny, it's just good for the digestion. And it just tastes really good. Like fennel obviously has that aniseedy taste, which is really lovely. And I sometimes make fennel smoothies, so you literally, like, I mix up like dates, almond butter and fennel with like almond milk, and it's delicious. But I would recommend that every single day. And then lemon, of course, lemon, cinnamon, ginger. And again, right now I'm focusing a lot on ginger because that really reduces inflammation. And a lot of us actually have a lot more inflammation than we realize. Like, most of us do have a bit of inflammation, and inflammation is what causes disease. And so to reduce inflammation in our bodies, ginger is amazing. Turmeric does the same, cinnamon does the same, but I think ginger is the most potent when it comes to inflammation. And what I realized only about a year ago is that I used to put ginger slices or grate the ginger because it's a bit stronger, but actually ginger powder is the most potent, because to get the amount of the strength from ginger to grated ginger, you need a lot more of that than the powder. The powder is the strongest. So if you can, obviously having fresh is totally fine, and it's delicious, but ginger powder is really, really strong, and if you can take that heat, it's really good for you. And you can mix that up with cinnamon and turmeric. There's nothing wrong with any of them. You can mix them up, you can have one, see how that makes you feel. What I also didn't realize when I saw my Ayurvedic doctor in India recently, I was told that actually, even though I have cinnamon and turmeric and ginger, she said avoid cinnamon and turmeric right now because your body has so much heat that the cinnamon and turmeric are aggravating that heat. So again, that brings me back to the constitution, where all these things are so good for you. So why is it that turmeric would not be good for me? I mean, it's good for everyone. So, but you can overdo these things, just like you can overdo broccoli. Like there's, that's why Ayurveda speaks about balance. And often, if you've ever been to not an allergy test, but an intolerance test, sometimes what comes out of that test is things that you've been having too much of. So even if broccoli is really good for you and oats are really good for you, if you've been overdoing them, the allergy test, the intolerance test might come up with those very things, and they'll tell you to just avoid it for a few weeks and go back to it because you've been doing too much of it. So that's the other thing. I think some of us, especially I get obsessive with the one thing I've got into recently, like I might be obsessed with almond butter or something. If I have a jar in front of me, I'll just finish the whole thing. But like that is something you can really overdo because it's heavy, it's rich, and it's not easy for our stomachs to digest that many nuts. Another thing I was told to avoid actually, because I think I have too much of it. So that's again the constitution. And then rather than just focusing on just digestion, of course that's really, really important, I thought I'd speak about the other things I speak about in the book, which are not necessarily Ayurvedic in principle, but they are part of that lifestyle that we speak about. So waking up and smiling, because actually, even if you're forcing yourself to smile, it'll then come naturally afterwards, because it's something that triggers something in our brains, and even if we're not feeling happy, over time, smiling can actually fake it till you make it, basically. So if you're not in a happy, inspiring moment in your life, the smiling will help you to release those serotonin, those hormones that we need to feel a little bit happier. And the reason why I say these things is because when you're going through a normal stage in life and everything's fine and you're okay and things are, you're not unhappy, the smiling can just add and enhance your morning, perhaps. Allow you to get out on the right side of the bed, all of those things. But when you're going through your darkest times, the fact that you've started that smiling and it's become a habitual thing will allow you to recover a little bit easier. It can become your survival toolkit. I speak about sort of in the book your toolkit of rituals, or your toolbox of rituals, because they can become your sort of your way to sort of survive through the darker times. But actually in the happier times, it can become a way to thrive as well. And I also read something yesterday when I was researching smiling, and it said smiling triggers a reduction in stress-enhancing hormones and increases the production of mood-enhancing hormones, which is what I was saying about hormones. So actually, things like smiling and gratitude, the next thing I speak about in the book is gratitude. So even if you don't have time, or you think writing a gratitude list might be a bit too long for you, just waking up and saying a simple thank you before you leave the house, or remembering something the day before that made you happy or that you're thankful for in your life. Maybe focus on the small things, because the bigger things are there anyway, and those maybe, you know, you have a bit of gratitude for, but you're not finding it easy to express that gratitude. But focus on the small things that happened the day before in the morning. Someone you met, something that someone did for you, the cup of coffee you had that made you feel happy, whatever it is, because in those moments later in the day, you will remember that there is an element of gratitude for it. And over time, that will become a part of your makeup. And then I wanted to speak about the power of affirmations. Now, again, I don't know how many of you know about affirmations. Louise Hay speaks about affirmations. So many people, there's I don't know if you've heard of the book Autobiography of a Yogi, by Yogananda. So he, again, there's a lot of affirmations that he speaks about, and there's a lot of affirmations he's actually listed. Louise Hay has done the same, and I've actually quoted both of those spiritual guides and leaders in the book, and affirmations from them. But you can make your own affirmation. An affirmation is basically something that you want to feel, and that you want your sort of mind to be guided towards. So something that you're aspiring to. So if you say, I am happy and I love and honor and respect myself, maybe you're not feeling that, but over time, by saying that, you will start sort of inspiring your mind to feel that way. So if you're not happy and you're saying, I am happy, I choose to be happy, then over time you will choose to be happy. And maybe it won't happen tomorrow or the day after, but I found that affirmations really helped me when I was going through my divorce. It was really, really hard to kind of lift myself on a daily basis, but these affirmations really sort of ticked me over to the next day. But affirmations are also very, very powerful when you can do EFT with them. If you've heard of emotional freedom technique, this might be going into too much detail, but I'll speak about it later if we have time. I won't go into exactly how to do it, but you tap on the meridians and you say those affirmations out loud, like, I choose to be happy. And then you do all the tapping, and there's like 7 or 8 meridians in the body where you do this tapping, and you keep doing it. And that will tap it into your system. And what you're trying to do is change the patterns of thought and the way you're sort of regarding yourself, your life, and what you're inviting into your life. You're trying to invite love, you're trying to invite respect, you're trying to invite even abundance. You know, if you want more money or whatever it is you're trying to invite into your life, you're trying to use those affirmations to sort of change the framework and the patterns that we have, which is so difficult to break. So that's one other thing. That's a tool that I feel like is part of my toolkit, even though I don't practice it every single day now, but I want to go back to it. And I absolutely love EFT. I think it's a really easy tool that you don't really need any, you can have guidance, there are EFT practitioners, but you can just go online and follow a video and just do it, and you'll see the difference. It's amazing. So before I go on too much, I thought let's have a break and have some of the tonics and make them ourselves. Now, cardamom isn't something I ever used in hot water. I'd only use it in milk. But I went to a wellness resort in India recently, and all they kept giving us the whole day was lemongrass and a bit of cardamom in there. So they literally put cardamom pods in the kettle and lemongrass leaves all rolled up, and then you pour it out. And you just get that flavour through it, and I didn't really realise that you can actually just drink cardamom like that, but you need very little. So you can mix up a bit of a bit of cinnamon and ginger with honey and lemon. And if you just want fennel seeds and cumin seeds, you can just have that. You don't need a lot, because it's literally 1 cup. You literally need like less than 1/4 of a teaspoon of everything. But yeah, go for it. So I think you can make your own concoction and have it. Make it into a bit of a chai. I have my own chai spice mix, which is the one you just had, which I sell. But like, you can literally just add ginger powder to your cup of tea, and it'll just make it warm. You'll feel real warmth inside you when you actually have it. So heating for the body, and it is very heating.
Jason's making his own spicy sandwich.
Like you could that much heat in the body could actually cause, say, spots, because it's quite strong. So start off with little and see how it makes you feel. I could just take a lot, and I was told by my Chinese doctor last year that it'll really suit me because I've got very cold hands, circulation's poor. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I don't know enough about what goes with what. I mean, I think that if you have too much imbalance of bitter, all these heat. Yeah. I mean, I'm not even sure why, for example, turmeric and cinnamon are not as good as ginger for me. Like, it's not like I can tell you why. But I think it's one of those things where if you just have it in balance, if you have a little bit, it'll be fine. I did overdo cinnamon. Like, I just had it in everything.
It's funny you say that.
Change overnight. And that's why repetition is really important. That's why affirmations are great, because they're repeated, and that's what affirmations are. An affirmation is a phrase or even just a word that sums up a truth you would like to absorb into your life. With repetition, an affirmation can instill self-belief, help you acquire a quality that you need, or start a process of transformation. Repeating affirmations helps to shift unconscious thought patterns, helps to rewire those patterns, and move towards positivity. Our thoughts affect everything we do every single day. They impact how we feel about ourselves and how we see the world around us. So affirmations can be life-changing. You can create your own toolkit, and it doesn't need to be created when you're in the depths of sadness. It can be created when we're actually having a normal life. But it's those practices, those sadhanas, those rituals that will just help you during those happier and during those like darker times, I think. Breath,
I love the cover of this book.
You take it
cool.
through the nostril and the back. Happened upon it. I didn't know anything about breathwork. I didn't know it on a daily basis, and realised that there's such a power within that to like completely calm me down in any moments of any stress. But over time, I then started doing breathwork, and I started doing breathwork with a practitioner. I started going to Kundalini classes. There's like a whole world of breathwork out there, and I just didn't know about it. And it's transformational on every level. Also, it clears so we have chakras in the body, the energy centers, which sometimes when there's chakras in your own voice, it's like your words are just not coming out really. They're sort of getting stuck. Say how you feel, life force, or what the Chinese call the chi. So the best way to do it, either sit cross-legged, but the best way that I would say to do it is if you can sit like this. This is the most optimum position for digestion. So if after a meal you're feeling really heavy, this is the position you want to sit in. So you put your hand, or just sit how you're sitting, it doesn't really matter. Put your hand on your belly and literally breathe out. Don't focus on the in-breath, so don't breathe in. The in-breath will happen naturally. And expel the breath like you're sort of detoxing it. So you can continue doing this for like ages, and you might feel a bit out of breath, but over time you'll become so used to it and be able to do, the next 100, the next 100, and it's amazing. You'll feel so invigorated in the morning. I probably wouldn't suggest it in the evening, which is all that is natural, or simply look up at the sky and absorb the vastness of that space above you. For a moment, smile, forgetting everything else. Go back to work or the situation you need to face with a slight shift in mind and mood. So it just takes a few minutes of just doing something to get you away. So if you're working at your desk all day, getting out and getting some fresh air, and just eating outside if you can and not back at your desk, will just reset your sort of mind, your day and your mood. It's so wonderful to first thing in the morning put on a playlist if you can and listen to that, because it'll just sort of, even if it's while you're getting ready or while you're in the bath, whatever it is, if you put a playlist on, it's just nice to sort of get you into that right frame of mind in the morning. And even if you're in a rush, that music will sort of slow you down in being in that rush. So it sort of gives you that sense of calmness even if you're trying to speed through everything. Mindfulness can be seen as a modern interpretation of various teachings and practices that originated in ancient philosophies and spirituality. Buddha, for example, said that enlightenment is the end of suffering. Suffering comes from a person's failure to accept change, and this in turn arises from holding on to the past and fearing the future. Therefore, the end of suffering can come only by being here and now, by being entirely present. This is mindfulness, eating when you eat, sleeping when you sleep, being at one with what you're doing, with the person you're with the music you're listening to. Mindfulness means focusing on the present action and not on other thoughts that distract or attach to either the past or the future. This concept of living in the present and being fully immersed in what's happening right now isn't just at the heart of Buddhism. It could be argued that it is the overarching spiritual core of all religions and where these religions meet. So yeah, I think that was just sort of a way to sort of understand how mindfulness is at the core of everything and all religions and all spiritual strands and paths. And it's only now that we speak of, or we've coined this term mindfulness, because we've gone so far away from that moment which is here, because we are filled with, our lives and whatever we do is filled with distraction, and we focus a lot on what's happened and what's going to happen rather than what's happening right now.
The lassi.